When they went to the countries, they didn't take their land, they left their land with the people. You can cultivate, you can do and so on and so forth, but if you don't do it for after a certain number of years, for example, then you're wasting the resources. We can give it to someone else who can then utilize this particular land. There's a whole laws around this in Islamic law in which these kind of things are dispensed so that the resources are utilized properly rather than just left them for no reason.
So if those people choose not to believe, do they become the enemy?
No, they become the protected citizen. They call Zimmi, the protected citizen of the Islamic State, in which their life, their honor, their dignity, their religion will be protected. They don't have to go and fight to defend that land or conquer others. They are exempt from it by being a protected Zimmi, and what they call by giving certain compensatory tax in response to their not participating in the expansion activities by going into military conquest and so on and so forth. They can be exempt from that. But Muslims are not exempt, so they have to go.
So why is there so much violence attributed to Muslims or over in the Middle East? I mean,
you know what?
And again,
excellent question.
From an American perspective,
excellent question.
It all seems to revolve around the religion.
No, excellent question. I'm going to tell you why. If you go back, say, 300 years ago, in a place called Palestine, Muslims were in power. People were living within this particular area, Jews and Christians as well. They didn't have a problem. They were living in peace. When Europe was massacring, or about to massacre the Jewish people, they were fleeing to the safe haven with the Muslim lands. Whether it be in Spain or Morocco or whatever, they were going there. Their life was protected by the Muslims. What happened in the Middle East when the turn of power changed with the Balfour Declaration by the British and others and so on? They created this political instability and the mismatch of power and so on and so forth. That created an unfair, unjust regime in there where Muslims have become the ones who are now victims. Their lands being taken away slowly, and eventually the whole landscape changed. That Muslims are now the minority with a little bit of land, everything else now taken by the occupying forces. So of course, of course, and of course there will be resentment, there will be anger, because this is what happens. If someone comes to your home and you say, well, you know what, this is all mine now. Your bathroom is mine, your lounge is mine, your kitchen is mine. You know what? You can go to that shed and live over there. You would not feel happy. You will resist. So what they're trying to do in stopping that resistance, and just injustices happen already, but they want to even stop people from resisting. Initially, the Palestinians were resisting the intifada that you know of by peaceful resistance. That didn't work. In fact, they were even more curved because of their resistance and so on. Then they had a political resistance with, some weapons and whatever they had, maybe initially with weapons and whatever they could get hand of. That's because that's their struggle for freedom and oppression. So in the Middle East, all this violence are happening because of this. And who created all of that? Not the Muslims. Muslims are the victims. There are other oppressors who are creating this form. And this has a ripple effect all over the world, where it seems like everyone is supporting Israel as a nation and not supporting the oppressed nation, the community who are Muslims, the Palestinians. Okay? So the Muslims are angry everywhere else as well.
So when you say oppressor, do you mean Israel?
The occupying force is the oppressor.
Right? Israel or Judaism? Or...
No. It has nothing to do with Judaism.
Right.
People who were Jews were practicing their Judaism in their own quarters, freely, openly, peacefully, in tolerance. Judaism is not the problem with the issue there, it's Zionism. Zionism is a religion in its own. It doesn't have to be, an atheist could be a Zionist. There are Muslim Zionists too, I hear.
So America and their relationship with Israel, that creates I don't know if I want to use the term hatred, but you've heard people call America the great oppressor.
People can have resentment and anger with America because it's siding with an oppressor. It's not only supporting the oppressor, it's facilitating the oppressor, it's safeguarding the oppressor, it's promoting the oppressor. So by doing so, when you glorify a terrorist, there's a law now that you are actually committing a crime because you are supporting, encouraging, promoting terrorism. America, with its support, is glorifying terrorism. So it's a criminal in the eyes of many people.
Right. So does the Muslim religion support the terrorist acts?
Of course not.
I don't know. No, I'm sorry.
Of course not. Of course not. Because Islam gives people the freedom to choose what religion they want to follow, right? If you want to accept Islam, fine. If you don't want to accept Islam, that's your choice.
But a lot of these acts are done in the name of Allah.
People, when they take in their own hands to commit the acts of violence against innocent people, of course this is wrong. Islam doesn't condone any of that. If a country fights another country, you don't consider that terrorism. Because one country is fighting another country, whatever the reason. But if you fight an innocent community, an innocent individual, or an innocent state, that is terrorism. So whoever does that, whether it be Christians and Jews and Muslims and atheists, you're committing acts of terror and terrorism, which is totally not acceptable.
So, so in America, these acts of terrorism that we hear are being done in the name of Allah, right?
Can I just switch back? The acts of terrorism that America is committing for years and years, everywhere in the world. What are you as American doing for that? You seem to be focusing on the response to these terrorist acts.
No, I understand.
To understand why in this landscape you have these pockets of terrorism happening, you call it terrorism, this is a response to American aggression. So what are you as Americans, I suppose you're Americans, right? What are you doing to stop America from these aggressions? That will solve the problem for any of these pockets coming and committing here and there, blowing the Twin Towers and blowing this and that. That would stop there. Because before America did all of those things, did people go to America or the Americans themselves start blowing up buses, trains and big buildings? It was never heard of. It's only when America has become the aggressor, certain people, which we don't agree with, are committing a tit-for-tat response.
Right.
So the solution is remove the aggression, so any resistance or counter-response that comes will be eliminated, will be prevented.
Right, so if all of that stopped, though, you don't believe that it's settled because you want your land back, right?
Palestine, if the land has been taken away, if I take your land, your home,
no, I'm asking.
I'm trying to understand something. It's not my view. We're talking about a view of people who are sound in their rational judgment. If somebody has taken your land wrongly, what it is required is simply give their land back and say sorry, and that's settled. But if you saying I'm not going to give you land back, then the problem will remain. That is the reality check that people need to have. Unfortunately, people are not thinking that way. They're thinking, how do we stop all this terrorist activity? Let's have prevent strategy in UK. Let's have X, Y, and Z. It is not going to solve the problem, because there will be certain individual who will take on their own hands, out of their desperation, through their maybe emotional stance, not thinking rationally, and they commit something bad in response, which Islam doesn't agree with. But to prevent these kind of things are happening, you have to look at their grievances and you have to solve that problem. America, England are not doing that. In fact, what they're doing is trying to, there's a tap that's leaking. Let's put some sedative over it. It's never going to fix the problem. Put a pot underneath the dripping water. It's not going to solve it. Concentrate on the root cause. Eliminate the root cause.
Which is,
what is the root cause in your?
No, not mine. You tell me. What is the root cause in Palestine? I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to ask you as an American. what is the root cause of problem in Palestine?
Occupied land.
Occupied land. I'm not going to say anything. You tell me. So occupied land of what? Who's the occupier and whose land is being occupied?
Well, so I don't know all the history of, but I think from your
You should know.
I know.
I think this is a fair question, though. But you think of.
My view, not important. We are talking about
So then why is our view important?
because you're America, because you're Americans, are not solving the problem. So you need to go and understand what the root cause is. So when you realize occupation, people's usurping and stealing people's land and so on and so forth, seems to be the problem that has caused all this tension around the world. Give the land back to its owners, the real owners.
So
if it belonged to the Jewish people, give it to the Jewish people. If it belonged to the Christian people, give it to the Christian people. If it belonged to the atheist people, give it to the atheist people. Give it to the owners who are the rightful owners of the land.
Right.
It so happened that it was the Palestinians who had the majority of the land. They didn't just simply sell it off, it was taken from them.
So when everybody was living in Palestine, cohabiting together, I think you answered my question. Who owned the land? Everybody owned their...
Go back before 1920s. Go back in the 1880s, for example, an arbitrary date. Look at the landscape, look at the map. Who were the indigenous or who were the people living there? Okay, not someone who's a tourist there, people who had their own lands. And you will see the answer. I'm surprised, not you, I'm surprised by the media brainwashing of Americans and Europeans that they didn't even know who's the occupying force and who is the aggressor and the victims. And that's why they never pressurize the government to make the right judgment. The government, with their own particular interest, they will do what they want to do because they have an interest. But if the people realize that that is wrong, they would have solved the matter a long time ago. So the people need to be aware, need to be educated. Unfortunately, the governments are not allowing people to be educated. There is a whole program of media brainwashing. Brainwashing to know who is the victim and who is the criminal. That's the problem. So we want to see that people waking up to it. Like how many Americans, they don't consider the 9/11 is Muslim terrorists done it. They think it's a job by the government themselves, right? Many. The government calls them conspiracy theorists. Why are they thinking that way? Why are they conspiracy theorists? Is it because they love the Muslims? Of course not. Because the circumstances tells us something fishy going on. So these people are waking up. So we want the general public to wake up to solve these problems of the world, and you will see that America will be a great nation in the eyes of people.
So I understand and I agree. There is brainwashing. Let's say, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you might know, isn't Israel, like the Jewish people that are occupying Israel, isn't their argument that this was our land way farther back before?
Even before that, it was the original Palestinians and the descendants of them, the Arab Muslims. So they don't win even there.
Okay. So what is their argument though? What is their
the Zionists have many arguments. They think whole of Saudi Arabia is theirs. The Iraq and Saudi Arabia, part of Iran and so on. That's the Zionist, the world view in their landscape. They want it all. Who gave it to them? God has already guaranteed that this is your land. Of course, this is not your land. If that was your land, what happened to it? So lands come and go. But what the Muslims in Palestine are saying, you, with all your sanity today, you're not like a primitive individuals in the past where it's all about hunting tribes, where you can hunt everything, not only on the people and kill them all, loot everything and it becomes yours. Now you're human beings. You understand and appreciate the differences, whether they're white or black or whatever. You want to live human beings. Right. So people's understanding is a bit more grounded on humanity compared to some other times. So they're saying you have devoured our land, taken it by force. Okay? We're not talking about a million years ago. It wasn't even yours to begin with. Like America was not for Americans. There was indigenous people. Right. Give it back to them then.
I agree.
Right? So the question is not about this. Question is the oppression that is committed in the last few hundred years. That's where the problem is. The solution like one-state model, two-state model, so on, you can try all that mess. Unless you haven't addressed the grievance of the people, there is always going to be pockets of problems here and there. You cannot stop people. When injustice is being committed against any human being, sooner or later they will rise up. Some strongs from them, emotional from them will rise up, and they might do something which is not good. That's why we need to really make people not have these grievances. So, why do I have the right to mock you and your mother and your wife and your father and so on and so forth? Why do I have the right to insult you? I don't. But this is what the society is doing now. It's like, you know what? You can mock your father, your mother, your prophet, your God, and so on and so forth. If you mock my parents, I will be angry. I would not be happy. I would say, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? If you mock my God, who I love more than my parents, I will be even more angrier. So this is what's happening in the society, people doing this. Why they're doing this? In the name of freedom? That's not how you bring people together. That's a division that you make. That's a division you're trying to make. If you want to unite, look, Quran says, do not insult even other gods, lest they insult Allah back. So even there are other false gods, we are told not to even insult them. You can disagree and say, they're not worthy of worship, but we have no right to mock and insult.
So wouldn't that be like, if you disagree with them, you say out loud, that God isn't real, our God is real. Couldn't that kind of be like an insult? Couldn't that be seen as an insult?
What is an insult?
It's to the person. The person can define it for themselves what an insult. There's
no. You can't just define whether you're a man or look. The current trend is you can define whether you're a man or a woman. I mean, can I define? Okay, I'm actually a dragon trapped in a human body. No. Why not?
Because that's not who you are.
No. I am a dragon trapped. Hear the word, trapped in a human body. I am a female trapped in a male body.
Okay. No.
That's the trend, right? You know the trend. That's what people are trying to. All this LGBTQ business and so on. You and I may disagree that this doesn't work with us. It doesn't work with us.
And to them, us disagreeing is an insult to them now.
Now, how can that be an insult? We are simply disagreeing. Disagreement.
It's an insult, but they think it's an insult.
They need to understand what insult is then.
Well, and I think what he's saying is
they see it as an insult. We do.
No, it's not about seeing. You need to understand what an insult is. Disagreement is not an insult. I can disagree with you on something, you can disagree with me on something.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm insulting you or you're insulting me.
Sure.
But I do think, to his point, that I can tell you as, an American, even walking through London, right, that, with so many people in the Middle East that, it's like there's so much animosity because you're either white or American or whatever, right? And I think it's because, something as simple as believing differently, right?
The Middle Eastern people, if they do have this outlook about the American whites, that's a social conditioning created by the American themselves. So they're the ones to be blamed partly too, because they have created a social conditioning of a large number of people, if that is true, I'm taking your word for truth, and they have created this grievance within them. If they didn't have that condition, that will be removed. It's if, then this. This is the condition that's been created by the people themselves. So, an insult is something that is derogatory.
Okay.
Something that offends you in such a way that because I have made some ridicule, some mocking, something of that nature. Because if I say, for example, you are beautiful, that's not an insult.
Sure.
But if I said you're ugly like a pig or something, I'm making derogatory statements. That is when you can say I'm making an insult.
So then, on that case, what if I just say you're crazy? Like I don't like. What if like someone out of their mind, like someone on the street who just obviously is not right in the head, they come up to me and say you're ugly, and I'm just like okay, and I walk away, unbothered, uninsulted. Even though they said an insult, I'm uninsulted. Why is like
tell your wife you're ugly?
No, yeah, but again, like it's
would you? Right? He understands. Like I'm sure you've been married for a number of years and you'd know exactly what it means. So we should not say things which people will get hurt. If I say I disagree with you, there's no reason for you to be hurt, because I don't have to accept what you believe in. You don't have to accept what I believe in. But it doesn't mean I'm insulting you or you're insulting me. You have to make that distinction.
But to disagree is kind of in a way to say I'm right and you're wrong because I believe something else than you believe. I'm right, you're wrong.
That's not insult either. You can say I'm wrong, and I would not say it's an insult.
Okay. So
because that has nothing to do with an insult.
Sure, I mean you can say that, but people, it's just such a
people who get offended saying this is an insult, they need a reality check.
Exactly. I'm not saying that it's just, but it's saying insult is just such a broad word. Like people can take anything as an insult. It's just hard to specifically define.
They need to understand what an insult is then, right? People need to, when we say, for example, something is good, you need to understand what good is. Because the good doesn't mean something that is smelling, foul. It has its own connotation conceptually.
Right.
The language that we're speaking, the words have meanings. Insult, what kind of meaning does it have? Good meaning in the dictionaries?
No.
That, oh, it's okay for me to be insulted? Everyone says, no, I don't want to be insulted. And they might, by today's convention, give legal right to people like, it's okay for you to insult others. But we're saying we shouldn't even have that right, okay? Because that is not a good thing to insult and mock and ridicule.
So you think things are, by that case, words are either good or bad?
No, they are neutral words.
There's neutral words?
Of course.
Okay. So I mean, I just want to make that understand. Okay.
Yeah. But insult, by its own conceptual understanding, is not neutral.
Okay. But
they're like, can I insult you? Do you think like, yeah, go ahead? Then you say, what is this? What's wrong with this guy? He wants to insult me. Because you'd think insulting means to defame me, to have some... Certain words are like that. Oh, can I say, for example, can I don't want to use this word, but something like totally negative. Like, can I say like you are a rapist? Why would I say that? Is it a good thing to be associated with, I am a rapist, hallelujah. No one would be proud of that. No one would glorify that. No one would be happy and say, now let's celebrate it. Because a rapist, by this connotation, is someone who acts on their will and forced their will on someone else by force without their consent and so on. That's not a good thing. So insult, for example, should be taken in that way, like, why would you do that? So when it comes to religion, we can have our differences. You know the example I gave you about the coherency of the concept of God? We say God is so merciful to us that He has given us guidance to all nations, all times, because He's just. And all the nations, when the waters came to them, they had a clear understanding who God is and what they have to do to be saved from hellfire that is there in the future. None of them, prophets, told them about, you know what, God is like a Trinity, and then Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and God is like a half elephant and half man, and God is a black man called Krishna, and so all of this then came from God, because God will be always consistent in His message. Because consistency, because He's one, He hasn't changed. So when He conveyed the message about Himself to Abraham, imagine Abraham in the day of judgment sees God on the throne, someone on the right hand side, and there's a Holy Spirit hovering. He will faint. I would faint if I was Abraham, because he was the friend of God, and God didn't tell him who he was, that I had a son as well. So this is what we are saying is, people often don't realize from historical transformation what happens to some of the truths. The truths gets corrupted. It's get changed over time. When Moses came, upon him be peace, he didn't tell the people to worship him. He told people to worship God. When Christ came, the son of Mary, upon him be peace, he didn't tell people to worship him. He says worship God. But what happened? As time went, now I hear Christians saying worship God through Christ, worship Jesus, and so on and so forth, depending on who you speak to. The one who came to tell you to worship God, he himself has become the object of worship. What a change of turnover of, it's like, a tragedy what has happened to human history. Who said to worship God only, people are now worshipping him instead. So that's why we're saying is Christianity, in the Quran they says they are dallin, they are into their misguidance. So to remove the misguidance, to come to the truth, is to understand God as God has consistently throughout history has explained about who he was. One and only God, not three in one. There's a difference between one, 3 in 1, 2 in 1, 5 in 20, whatever. They're not equivalent. So Christians need to come back to the God of Jesus, the God of Moses, the God of Abraham. Then we will say, yes, you are now coming on the right track, and the next step is follow the final messenger. If you are a Jew, and the messenger prophet Jesus came, your next step as a Jew is to accept him as your prophet, as your messenger, and follow him so that you worship him according to what he has brought through laws God given to him. If you're a Christian, your next step is to know who the final messenger is, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't lose anything. You are now worshipping God as God, who God is in his reality. So this is what we're saying. Islam is that only acceptable ideology, the message, the religion, the way of life that is acceptable to God. The religion of Jesus, Abraham, Moses, Muhammad, peace be upon them all. We're inviting you to that. You're not losing anything to become a Muslim, you're gaining everything.
And if we don't accept that, then we're a Christian, and
if you don't accept that,
your enemy?
You don't become my enemy because you don't accept something. Okay. If you don't accept Islam,
I agree
you will have your consequences with God in the hereafter. If you are living in an Islamic country, then you will be the non-Muslim citizen in an Islamic country. Back in the past where Islam was implemented, then you would have been the protected citizen in which your life, your honor, your dignity, your wealth, your religion will be protected. Today, we don't have an Islamic country where Islam is implemented, and that's why somewhere, some places, the Christian minority may be oppressed. And I don't disagree with you that that might be the case in some places, because they're not implementing Islam. That's why people may get oppressed. Muslims are getting oppressed in the Muslim countries themselves. Other minorities who are not Muslims.
So what are the sect of Muslim where people are killed, right? For their beliefs. I mean, right?
You have no right to kill someone for their belief just because they have a different belief, right?
They claim to be Muslim. They claim to follow Allah.
Yeah, but the KKK claim to be Christians.
Right.
And the Lord resistance army claims to be
Right.
No, where is it? Someone had the bag.
we're saying those are black people in the community. They are.
Someone took it from me. I hope so. I hope someone Muslim.
Our scholars have been vocal against in the early 90s against people like that. But some of the West suddenly turn the blind eye to the same bag.
Same bag like this one, yeah.
Media is what sells.
Where is it?
Okay, maybe it is with Hassan. You know the Jamaican.
There you go. Here.
Okay, thank you.
Barakallah fi. That's okay.
Because your batteries are now, so you're going to pack your stuff.
My batteries are out?
Yeah.
Battery for what?
The battery for the
Microphone.
receiver. The receiver.
Oh, the receiver, okay.
And even this maybe, I don't know. Because it wasn't recording the audio.
Okay, no, sure.
Who are they? Christians?
American Christians.
Yeah. Still there.
The messengers, and he came with the original message of worship Allah, the one God, and you love Him, and you have a personal, deep, loving connection with that God. You don't go through Muhammad or through Jesus or Mary, on whom be all peace. Go directly through God. Even Jesus said that in the Bible, in the Gospel of John. I agree.
That's why we don't.
You were talking about enemy? We have an enemy.
It's the devil.
It's the common enemy. It's shaitan. God tells us, be aware of this enemy. Satan. He is our common enemy. So you have to take him as an enemy, avoid all the footsteps of Satan, get rid of him by this jihad of your struggle of yourself, not to follow the whispers and footsteps of Satan. That is the clearest enemy. The enemy of the state may be the one, another state, if they come to totally destroy and annihilate it from existence, then you will consider them your enemy. But you will have relationship with other nation states in which you will be certain pacts and treaties in which you will say like say, well, you know, you have an international agreement. You don't violate this agreement, you have to fulfill this agreement. That's the pact and the treaties that you have. Islam is very harsh on people fulfilling the obligation of treaties and contracts and so on.
Yeah, one of the biggest misconceptions is, you know, when we see a terrorist act and it's done in the name of Allah, right? We attribute it to Islam.
Yeah,
right.
That's
you know, when the American military does something, they don't do it in the name of religion. You know, they right. You know, and so
So you know why they have equated this act with Islam rather than with these misguided Muslims? Because they have a beef with Islam. Because Islam and American interests, they're not synonymous or equivalent. America is a materialistic organization as a state.
Right.
It thrives on industries like pornography, alcohol, gambling, interest, and Islam again, all of that. So of course, America would not want any obstacles coming from the Muslim world, which is so big, can be so powerful if they unite. And that's why it's always trying to demonize the other and saying, okay, this is all about Islam. So in the minds of the Americans, they will think, that's the thing. So it's a concocted enemy within the minds of the American for a political interest.
It's everything's done in the name of religion and not in the name of, you know, a country or a state or, you know, some military.
Do you know why some Muslims also get really angry? Some Muslims, when America sends bombs to Iraq, in the name of God, in the name of Jesus, whatever, they write it on the bombs and they drop it. How would the Muslim world feel when they see that? So they're aggravating people's grievance and anger. I mean, you are a non-religious entity, you're America, but don't say in the name of God we're going to bomb you. I mean, that's going to even make things worse, right?
And think about it, the invaders are coming to invade your country, and you have nothing wrong. You're living in a village, cooking your meat and whatnot, with your family, and having a family unit, and now you see a country bombing your country. For what?
Yeah. One thing I can tell you, America can be a great nation with all these people around there if they start sorting their governments out. Right?
Well,
I mean, I agree.
Everything is done, you know, in the name of power. Right?
It's a power struggle.
Right, I agree.
Yeah. So likewise, Europe or Australia or Africa, they can be great nations as long as, because people themselves, they're okay, they're good, but they're manipulated, they're indoctrinated, they are somehow, you know, totally brainwashed. That's the key word: media brainwashing, political brainwashing, and that's why the poor people, they're at a loss, not sure what to do. I mean, like the presidents that came to you, some of them, they haven't got a clue how to run the country, and people are voting for them because that's how the confusion people are in. They don't even know who's the fit candidate and who's not. Yeah. So America has a lot of working to do by the people, where your systems of education, culture and so on, it's real upheaval and real lift. Yeah, other countries too, not just America only, other countries where then people can have this tolerance and understanding of each other, and we can live in a society with our differences. We can live knowing that, you know, you eat pork and I don't, but I'm not going to simply like say, you know what, I can't even speak to you because you eat pork. I know this is your diet. I know this, your religion says that, but it doesn't mean that, you know, I can't even say hello to you just because of that. So this division that's been created to make enmity between people, between nations, between races, between linguistic communities. It's for this, again, and someone's interest. Because when you have divisions and then you make them in pockets here and there, unity is strength, division is weakness. Yeah. Anyway, it's been nice and pleasure speaking to you. All the best. You take care. Yeah. Okay.
السلام عليكم.
Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم.